What we're going to do here for a while this morning, this segment, is talk with former New York Governor George Pataki. He is in the state of Iowa, and since he's here in the state, is this a preliminary visit for other nefarious purposes like running for president?
Jen, I've been here many, many times over many years,
yes.
And you might be able to predict the future better than I can. We'll see what happens.
So your motives are pure, this can.
I make no bones about it. My motives are political. I'm head of a group, No American Debt, and this country is being driven off a cliff by the politicians in Washington, and
yes.
It's got to stop.
Is it going to stop at once, or is it going to stop gradually?
Well, it's better if it stops sooner rather than later, and I fear it might not stop at all given this administration and the policies that it's engaged in, but it has to. This is the first time, America's always been about the future. It's always been about sacrificing about the future, and so we can build a better tomorrow for our kids and the next generation. And this is the first time where we are stealing from the future. We're engaged in generational theft so we can live beyond our means today and reward special interests and political affiliates. And it's wrong. It's not the American way, and ultimately it will be very destructive of this country if it doesn't stop.
Well, actually,
I don't mean to get serious right from the beginning here, Jan.
Good morning, Governor.
Good morning. It's good to see you. But, you get me a little hyped up here.
Our founders, our framers, wrote and thought a lot about this subject.
They sure did.
I've got a whole bunch of quotes here from Jefferson. He said one of his biggest regrets when it came to the Constitution that we included the power of the federal government to even have debt. He said it was a big oversight, and he said we're duty bound, and every generation is duty bound to pay their own bills.
Well, there's no question we are, but the politicians don't see it that way in Washington, and particularly this president doesn't see it that way, and it's wrong. And it will stop. It's a question of does it stop because we are in a complete crisis and meltdown, or does it stop because we have the political courage to stop stealing from our children?
Well, it depends on who's measuring the political courage and what you mean by political. Because if you're dealing in dollars and cents, mm-hmm. you're dealing with numbers, facts, figures, and mm-hmm. reality, and you can't fool the economy over the long term. But if you're interested in short-term political gain, keeping your phony baloney job,
right.
and then you go out and tell people that whose votes you're buying with other people's money, vote for me and we'll keep the scam going, you have half the population in Category B.
But you also have the vast majority of Americans who know it's wrong and who are willing to do, I believe, the right thing.
It won't prevent them from accepting the check, however.
Well, I think if you challenge the American people with a solution that we can lay before them and point out what is currently happening to the future of this country and the alternative vision where we can create jobs, empower the private sector, have small businesses hiring again, have a government that doesn't spend more on the interest on the debt than it does on national defense, I think the American people are ready and willing to do the right thing. We always have been. And people are talking about sacrifice. This is still a country where we had the greatest military in the world, and it's not because we force people into it. It's because we have brave young Americans willing to die for this country. And I think the vast majority of Americans are willing to do the right thing for this country if challenged appropriately. That hasn't happened,
okay.
But it has to happen, and the sooner it does, the better this country will be.
All right. Challenge us appropriately.
Well, how can you look at yourself in the mirror when you're spending this year $1.65 trillion more than you have? Now, that's a big number, Jan, and people go, well, what does that mean? Think of it this way. You're a family in Iowa. You're making $600 a week. You say, well, this is okay, but I'm going to spend $1,000 a week, and I'm going to do it week after week after week, and you're living high on the hog. And isn't this wonderful? Sooner or later, your phone's going to start to ring. And people are going to say, hey, by the way, you got to pay your bill or we're going to cut you off.
That's when we go change our name, change our telephone number, and get another credit card from another idiot.
We have done this time and time again. And as a government, we now owe $14.3 trillion. But it's caught up to us. And think back to 2008 when we had the financial crisis. And today, millions of Americans don't have jobs because of the aftermath of that meltdown. Almost no one saw it coming. we are facing a far greater crisis, and everybody sees it coming, because we know you can't continue to spend more than you earn year after year, 40% more than you earn, and not go broke. And so the solutions are there. This president has not advanced one solution.
All right, so it's the practical part. You're saying common sense. You're talking historical sense. You're talking economic sense. We're not sure if you're talking political sense yet.
Sure.
So 2 out of 3 ain't bad, though. But the problem, though, you have people working the other side of the strait who are not talking economic sense. They're talking politics. Use your earphones here for a sec. I want you to hear our own Senator Harkin yesterday.
I was listening on the radio and heard him yesterday.
And this is amazing stuff.
Implicit in a lot of questions that I hear here this morning is that somehow we've reached this point because there's a debate and a fight between Democrats and Republicans. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. I know of no Democrat in the House or in the Senate that is willing to let this country default. I know of no Democrat. However, on the Republican side, you've got scores of Republicans that say, fine, let the country default. Need I remind you of Michelle Bachmann in Iowa running around my state saying she wouldn't vote to raise the debt limit no matter what? No matter what. Got that? No matter what. This is one of their leading contenders for the presidency. So the debate and fight is not between Democrats and Republicans. It's between some Republicans and their sort of cult fringe, as I refer to them out there. Keep that in mind. Democrats are willing to do whatever is necessary to raise the debt ceiling, not for future borrowing, but to pay the debts that we racked up in the past.
All right, so that's an interesting set of logic there.
Yeah, the ending tells it all. We're willing to raise the debt ceiling, not so we can borrow, but so we can pay our bills by borrowing.
Yes.
It makes utterly no sense. But let me just get to the politics of this a second here, Jan.
Well, can I hate to do this to you. But,
no, it's perfectly fine.
Yesterday, Senator Harry Reid.
We're going to have a vote tomorrow. I'm not going to wait till Saturday. We're going to have a vote tomorrow, and I feel confident that this legislation will be disposed of one way or the other. The American people should understand that this is a bad piece of legislation, perhaps some of the worst legislation in the history of this country.
Wow. I'm assuming he's exempting Obamacare.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. The worst law passed in our lifetime is Obamacare.
But you have two high-profile Democrats,
right?
Basically saying that you guys, Republicans, are deadbeats.
Right.
This is irresponsible, the worst piece of legislation, and the world will come to an end if we don't continue borrowing more money from somebody.
Right. Jan, let me put it, I think, fairly simply. That was horrible partisan rhetoric. But look at the solutions that have been proposed. Paul Ryan proposed a $6.2 trillion solution. Senator Toomey proposed a $7 trillion solution. Senator Coburn proposed a $9 trillion Coburn. Harry Reid is the majority leader of the Senate. Where's his plan? Where's the Democratic Senate plan? Nancy Pelosi is the minority leader. Where's her plan? President Barack Obama, our campaigner-in-chief, he's the President of the United States. Where's his plan? There are dozens of plans out there, not one coming from the Democratic leadership in the Senate, the Democratic leadership of the House, or the President of this country. Yes, we need to work together. We need bipartisan solutions. But we are offering plan after plan, idea after idea, not just to borrow more money, but to get us to the position where we don't have to continue this borrowing so far into the future. And I think the first question to ask someone being critical of one of these plans is, where's yours? And if they don't have one, they shouldn't be allowed to be a part of that debate.
When we come back here in a moment, Governor Pataki, I want to hear yours, okay?
Sure.
Because you talk about no American debt. That is a luring title, and I'm in favor of that. And in fact, on an individual basis, it's a good idea, and as a country basis, that's a good idea. Back in a moment at 1040 WHO Radio.